Bueno, buenas noches, hermanos. Buenas noches, iglesia. Es un placer estar con ustedes en esta tarde, en esta noche, acá en la iglesia. Mandan saludos los hermanos de Argentina, de Sudamérica, de Honduras, de México, de los países de Latinoamérica. As you go to a place, if you're in Latin America and you're a guest speaker, you always bring greetings from where you've come. And I just gave you greetings from Latin America, from Argentina, and from Honduras, and from the different places that we have been able to visit. We visited some 22 countries in Latin America. So it's over these 22 years that we've been in mission work, first in Argentina and now 7 years in Honduras with the Baxter Institute. We've been able to travel and see a lot of different people and see God's kingdom and its unique growth really is growing. But first things first, gifts. As well, when you're visiting someone, you bring a gift. So who had a birthday today? Who had a birthday last week? All right, we'll extend it. Who will have a birthday this week? Good. No, I can't give my coffee away. All right. Who?
Daryl had a birthday. I did have a birthday.
This morning?
This month.
This month. Okay.
2 weeks ago now.
Yep, that's the way it is anymore, isn't it? As a fellow missionary, I'd like to extend this gift to your minister for his backgrounds in South Africa. He's going down there soon. And I'd like to see if you could just kind of leave it always out in the foyer. This is a coffee cup that says Baxter on it. But I wanted you especially to be able to be the one drinking from this cup. I think you like coffee. All right, we're going to go with our first video right away. This is kind of an overview of our campus and our ministry and what's happening in Baxter Institute. Baxter is a 4-year college that prepares men and women to be missionaries or to be ministers. We don't do anything else but prepare people to be in ministry. There we go. It's a very tropical setting. Tall palm trees on campus. That's our marriage student apartments. That's the chapel. That's our home where we live there on campus. Administration building. Second level is our classroom. This is our newly renovated and construction on our clinic. Just a wonderful construction that went into that. We have a visiting doctor. We have a Honduran doctor, 2 Honduran doctors actually, and a Honduran dentist. This is the dentist wing of the clinic. Okay, so this is chapel every day. So here you can watch me live at 11:30. We'll have chapel live on Facebook Live. That's a Mexican leading singing. Guatemala. These are 2 individuals from Ecuador. That's a Mexican. And this is a Guatemalan family. His 2 older brothers went through Baxter and are preaching Mexico City and Guatemala City. That's a Nicaraguan student baptizing a Honduran. This is a Venezuelan father, 40 years old, baptizing these women on campaign week. That's a Guatemalan baptizing a Honduran, Guatemalan student. Honduras is very mountainous, as you can see in the background there. So he's getting ready to go to the mission field. He's young, never been to the mission field, and this is 1850. And he's leaving Great Britain to go to the New Hebrides Islands. His name is John Patton. So in comes an older brother in the church, and he says, the cannibals are going to eat you. And he repeats it. The cannibals are going to eat you. And this young novice missionary doesn't know exactly what to say. But then he thought, well, Brother Dixon, you're 75, and in a few years you're going to pass away, and they're going to bury you in the church cemetery, and the worms are going to eat you. Whether the worms eat you or the cannibals eat me, and that final day we'll be resurrected to a glorious body. Pretty good comeback. He goes to the New Hebrides Islands, and he finds there a very hostile environment, and he finds cannibals. In the first year, his wife and son die. He stays on for 3 more years. There's a plague that hits the island, and it's the foreigners' fault. And so they come for him. He grabs up a bag, and he's headed to the shoreline, trying to get into a boat to get out to another larger boat that was out there, and they encircle him. And they got their spears, and they're doing this number. They're ready to slice and dice him and have him for lunch. What would you do in a situation like that? He falls to his knees, and he starts praying. He had worked with them for 4 years. He knew their kids, their wives, and so he prays for each one of them, every member of the family. And he goes all the way around the circle, and they let him go. Why would an individual do this at such a cost? At all cost. Why would he do something like this? 4.5 years ago, I was talking to Henry. Henry is getting close to 40. His wife is a school teacher in Cuba, was a school teacher in Cuba, and so had just come to Baxter, and I asked, okay, Henry, what did you do back in Cuba? I was a pig farmer. A pig farmer. How many pigs did you have? 500 pigs. I said, wow. What did you do with 500 pigs now that you've come to Baxter? Well, I had to sell them so I could get the funds to get here to Baxter. Why would he do something at such a high cost? Let's look at a passage in Scripture. Let's look to Mark, the 11th chapter, and we'll see if we can't find the reason, the motive, for someone like Henry and someone like John Patton to do something on this order. We'll be starting in Mark chapter 11 and verse 11. This is the final week in the life of Jesus. A Sunday, he enters Jerusalem, and they lay the palm branches before him, and they shout, Hosanna in the highest. To Jesus' entry into Jerusalem. That's on Sunday. And then on Monday, we see these events. Actually, verse 11 is still the very end of Sunday of Jesus' last week. He entered Jerusalem and went to the temple. He looked around at everything, but since it was already late, he went out to Bethany with the 12. He kind of scoped out the area, what he found at Jerusalem in the temple. The next day, which is Monday, As they were leaving Bethany, Jesus was hungry. Seeing in a distance a fig tree and leaf, he went to find out if it had any fruit. When he reached it, he found nothing but leaves, because it was not the season for figs. Then he said to the tree, isn't this interesting? Jesus talking to a tree. I don't think we have any other case of that, of Jesus talking to a plant, talking to a tree. And so what is he going to say to this tree? May no one ever eat fruit from you again. And the disciples heard it. This is out of character, we might want to say. The remainder of the chapter indicates the fig tree dies, withers up and dies. And the apostles, the disciples, notice that. What is going on? That he would do this? That he would curse this tree? Verse 15, on reaching Jerusalem, it gets even more troubling here as we're reading the text. Jesus is in the temple area, and he began driving out. This is Jesus. He's forcing people out, physically forcing people. He's driving out. Now, have you ever seen anything like that from Jesus? What has happened to him that he's wanting to react in such a way? He began driving out those who were buying and selling there, overturning the tables. He's taking tables and he's throwing them over of the money changers, and money's flying everywhere. I see Jesus with a red face. When I get a little upset, I turn red. Do you do that? But Jesus has got a red face here. He's very upset. He's shouting. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves, and would not allow anyone to carry merchandise through the temple courts. He's got the hand out. No, you can't come through any more. I mean, this is a place of worship, and he's prohibiting people from coming through this area. And as he taught them, and maybe we have a clue here as to why he's so upset. Is it not written, my house will be called the house of prayer for all nations? But you have made it a den of thieves. He's accusing them. He's accusing them of being thieves, robbers. The obvious, they've got a perfect racket here. It's kind of a tourist trap. And 2 million people would enter Jerusalem for the Passover. And they would come from all over the world, the known world, or specifically the Roman Empire. Pentecost, you get that sense. They're from everywhere that they've come for this feast. Well, they can't carry doves and sheep without blemish, and they don't have the right coin to pay the temple tax, another racket that you had to pay it with a certain kind of currency, the temple tax. And so they're making a big buck off these people. A den of thieves. It goes even deeper than that. It goes much deeper than that. Where are they doing it? Where are they doing it? They're doing it not in the Holy of Holies, not in the holy place, not in the court of the priests, or the court of the men, or the court of the women. The word all nations is the key. There was a place where all nations could come and worship. Gentiles could even get close. They had their own court where they could go and worship, but at a distance, the most distant place there in the temple area, court area, to pray and talk to God. They're robbing people of the most precious thing that we count, and that is a relationship with God, to communicate with God, to be at one with God. They're prohibiting that. They're making that a very, very difficult task for them. That's why he's got the red face. That's why he's shouting at them. That's why he is accusing them of theft. Ever been accused of theft? It is not a pleasant thing to be accused of. But would we rob people of their opportunity to hear God? Think about that. Let's look at this next video. We have a clinic, as you saw in the video, and this is a very specific aspect of what we're doing at the clinic. This is a man from Johnson City, Tennessee, working in a brigade to build prosthetic legs. We have a workshop where they build these legs. This is the teenager who's going to get a leg. They're shaping the foot. It's a wooden foot. That's a PCV pipe. And it's got a middle, wooden middle. And that's a shoe. This is the cuff that's going to go up on his leg. And there he is, walking. Mom was out waiting for him. There she is. And then Dad's out there waiting for him too. So 4 years ago, the individual who has designed this leg, he did a prototype on campus for a woman who was in her 50s. And so we said, well, let's see if this will work. And 1 year later, the same lady who received the very first leg put on Facebook a video of her dancing with her granddaughter in the kitchen. They work. 75% of the individuals who get these legs have been able to go to work. It's been allows them to get back into the work, into working in some area there, get them back in and doing that. We've done 426 legs, free for these individuals. Now the wonderful thing is, I mentioned the Venezuelan who's baptizing a woman there in the river on the campaign. And he got down there to the clinic when they were making a leg for a guy. And he started a Bible study with him. And 3 weeks later, he was baptizing him in a local church there in Tegucigalpa. The kind of a thing we so desire to see. But it's a thing that Jesus did. Why do we do this? Jesus did it. Jesus made the lame to walk. Jesus fed the hungry. In our clinic, we have a nutrition program. If you're interested in that, it's $45 a month to help out a malnourished child with food every month, every 10 days for the family. The mother is in a sewing school or a beautician school to give her a trade, get her out of her poverty. Most of the times when a child is malnourished, it's because there's no food. They're living in poverty. And the family gets a medical checkup every 3 months. These are women who are oftentimes the mothers beat up because they are on the bottom rung of society. So we've now got a psychologist, a counselor, working with them, helping them come through those difficult things that they've experienced as individuals. Why do we do it? That's the kind of thing Jesus would do. I want also my students to see that church is more than 4 walls. You've got a bunch of walls here, though. I can't do that on your congregation. Up at Wapak, it was that way. It's 4 walls. But it's more than 4 walls. You got to be in the community. You got to be making a difference. You've got to be reaching out to people in different kinds of ways, like I know you have done in different kinds of projects here in this community. I want our students to see that as part of what being a minister, a missionary is. So, if we took the world's population, and we reduced that 7 billion, I believe it is, down to 100 individuals. If we reduced everybody down to 100 individuals, 31 would be Christian. In a broad sense of that word, Christian. 24 would be Muslim. 16 would be classified as non-religious or secular, atheist. 15 would be Hindus. 7 would be Buddhist. 1 would be a Jew. 6 would be divided among animistic religions that still exist in our world. 2/3 of the world's population doesn't know Jesus. 2/3 of the world's population does not know Jesus. How do you feel about that? When Jesus used this statement, my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations. He was such an inclusive kind of a person. He was a person, an individual who reached out to the man who embodied the devil. He was demon-possessed. He would reach out and touch the leper. No one touched a leper. He did. He would associate with those who were the riffraff, the scoundrels of society, the tax collectors and publicans. He interacted with them. Jesus was one who would by simply a touch, heal the woman who had been hemorrhaging for 12 years. Jesus would say, okay, you who do not have sin, you be the first one to cast the stone. Trying to give this woman, this prostitute, hope and forgiveness and a second chance. That's Jesus. That's Jesus. And it's Jesus as a visionary. You see, Jesus is about to die. It says Monday. He will die on Friday. He's looking beyond the beatings, the whip, the spit, the grabbing the cross or having the cross put on his shoulders and trying to pull it through Jerusalem streets. He's looking beyond the hands and the feet being nailed to that cross. He's looking beyond that to all nations. He had that vision. I pray that we have that vision. Let me show you another video. It helps you understand what our vision is for Baxter. And this is kind of the culminating event each year. It's graduation. These individuals in black coats are graduating from the 5th-year program. Baxter graduates and church leaders go through a 5th-year program. She's a Cuban. And the ones in the blue coats or gowns are Christians from churches. He's a 15-year-old. And they've gone through a year's Bible course for Christians. We've probably had 10,000 people who have done this course in Latin America. These are the graduates this year. He's a Honduran. And it's quite a procession we put on for these graduates. 4 years of study. Many of them have never gone home in the 4 years. And behind Diane and I are the board members. These are board members here. I have 20 board members across America and in Latin America. These are some teachers, an English teacher. That's Henry, the pig farmer. That's his beautiful wife. And for our commencement, we had the president of Oklahoma Christian, John DeSteger, who gave the message, the commencement address. The choral director is a Cuban who went through Baxter. That's a Cuban on the left and a brother from Tennessee praying. We had around 400, 450 for graduation. The next day we had a send-off service. We had of area churches, and we had, as a Haitian there, we had 1,200 come for the send-off Sunday service. This is in an amphitheater we have on campus. That's my dean to the left. He's from Guatemala. Has a master's degree from a Christian college here in the States. When he was 4 years old, he was on campus with his mom and dad going through Baxter. And they were in the 5th-year program. And it was quite a graduation for that family. Your protection and your power, that we may all, that we may do everything possible for your glory and your honor. So being around for 55 years, we have students who have come from every nation in Latin America, and we have them in all of Latin America. We have 17 mission teams. That's usually 3 families or 4 families that are working together in a mission team starting a church. As far south as Bolivia, we have 2 now, and that's the rest of the story on Henry. Henry graduated, the pig farmer, and he's a part of the 2nd mission team to Cuba and is serving there in a great way. We have 3 mission teams in Mexico City. It's wonderful what God is doing. It's His work. It's in big-time way His work in our world. As I reflect off of these things, I mentioned John Patton and the rest of the story on John Patton, the missionary in the 1800s who goes to the New Hebrides Islands. He goes back. 2 years later with Margaret. Margaret's a pretty stout woman to know what had happened, to go with him to the New Hebrides Islands as he goes a second time. And they go to another island, but they convert the entire island to Christianity. What a wonderful, wonderful story. Why do they do that? It's all nations. It's all nations. And it's all peoples in Cold Springs and Alexandria and this area. So why don't you follow this example? This is our invitation tonight of this individual. We'll see in a video. He was baptized 2 years ago. I had the pleasure of baptizing him. For 7 years, the preacher of this congregation had worked with him, trying to get him to study the Bible. He wouldn't study the Bible. But he falls off a 3rd story at the construction site, and it tears up his left side. And he's on crutches, and he has pins sticking out of his left arm. So notice what we do to baptize him with all those pins in his arm. Notice this. Here he comes. And as he gets over to the baptistry, we put a garbage bag over his left arm. And I'm a little delicate with this guy as I'm trying to baptize him, all right? To the left is a Baxter student. He's coaching me on this. You'll watch him as he coaches me. I was afraid I was going to lose him in the water, that kind of a thing. Baptize him once. Whoops, you didn't get his head wet. Do it a second time. You remember the barrel baptism. This is the double dip baptism in Honduras. This is one of the most wonderful things that we get to experience. There's a very receptive area. Our students baptized. I've got on my phone, one of our students from Venezuela sent me 3 baptisms he had done this afternoon there in Tegucigalpa. It's a regular thing. 150 baptisms by our students on their weekend ministry assignment. We have them in school Monday through Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday they are required to be in a ministry setting. But who would respond tonight? Respond to this gospel call to give your life to Jesus in faith, repentance, and baptism. We'd love for you to come. Why don't you come as we stand, as we sing?